Right now, something is happening to your money. Not next year, not next month. Right now, today. And the most frightening part is not what is happening. The most frightening part is that most people will never realize it until it is far too late. My name is Zara. I am a finance educator and long-term investment mentor, and I want to start with something personal. Years ago, I was proud of my savings. I had worked hard, made sacrifices, and every time I looked at my bank account, I felt something I now recognize as a dangerous emotion. I felt safe. I thought I was doing everything right. My cash was growing, my future felt secure. I was being responsible. I was wrong. Not about working hard, not about saving. Those are real virtues. I was wrong about what cash actually does to your wealth over time. And that misunderstanding cost me years of real wealth-building progress I cannot get back. Today, I want to make sure it does not cost you the same. So let me ask you a question that sounds simple, but matters more than most people realize. What is money, really? Most people answer without thinking. Money is what I earn. Money is what I save. Money is the number in my account. And all of that is true in a practical sense, but it does not answer the deeper question. What guarantees that the number you see today will mean something real 10 or 20 years from now? The honest answer is uncomfortable. Modern currency is not a store of value. It is a medium of exchange, a tool for trading, a promise backed by government authority and collective trust. And like all promises, its value depends entirely on the conditions under which it is kept. Here is what that means practically. 50 years ago, a modest monthly salary could support an entire family. Rent, groceries, a car, modest savings. Today, that same nominal amount might cover a few weeks of basic expenses. The money did not disappear. The number did not go to zero. But its purchasing power, its real-world weight, quietly and consistently shrank. This process is called inflation, and while most people have heard the word, very few feel the full depth of what it means over a lifetime of saving. Think of your savings as a bucket of water. Every year there is a small hole at the bottom. Year 1, you barely notice. Year 10, the bucket is lighter. Year 25, despite everything you have added and every sacrifice you have made, you look down and the bucket is dangerously empty. That hole is inflation. And governments do not simply allow this to happen. Through monetary policy and money supply expansion, they often create the conditions for it. Because moderate inflation is genuinely useful to governments. It reduces the real burden of national debt. It encourages spending over saving. It keeps the economic engine moving. But for you, for the saver doing exactly what you were told to do, it is a silent, continuous tax on everything you have worked for. A tax you never voted for. A tax that sends no bill and asks for no signature. It simply takes, year after year, in increments small enough to ignore in the moment, but large enough to devastate a lifetime of effort. The lesson of part 1 is this. The safety you feel looking at stable numbers in your bank account is largely an illusion. Real safety is not about stable numbers. Real safety is about stable purchasing power. And in an era of consistent money creation, cash alone cannot give you that. Something else can. And for the next 4 parts of this video, we are going to talk about exactly what that something is, why it works, and how ordinary people can use it to genuinely protect what they have built. That something is silver. And its story is far more powerful than most people know. If part 1 resonated with you, It is because somewhere you have already felt what I described, that quiet unease, that sense that working harder and saving more is not quite adding up the way it should. That feeling is not paranoia, it is intuition. And today we give it the foundation it deserves. We are going to talk about silver. Not with hype or price predictions, with history, context, and calm clarity. So let us go back, far back. For most of recorded human history, silver was not an investment. It was money, real money. Civilizations from Egypt to Greece to Rome built their economies around it. When Roman emperors began secretly reducing the silver content of their coins, mixing in cheaper metals to stretch supply, prices rose, trade broke down, and economic decline followed. This is not ancient history disconnected from today. It is a repeating pattern. When real value is removed from money, money eventually fails. The people holding real assets survive. The people holding only paper promises do not. Now let us come to 1971, a date every serious student of money needs to understand. For much of the 20th century, paper currency was directly backed by gold. Your money was essentially a receipt, a claim on a real, tangible asset sitting in a vault. This gave money a physical anchor, a ceiling on how much could be created. In 1971, that link was cut. The dollar became what economists call fiat currency, money backed not by any tangible asset, but by government authority and collective trust alone. Before 1971, you could only create as much currency as you had gold to back it. After 1971, that constraint was gone. Money supply could expand without any physical limit. Since that decision, the purchasing power of the US dollar has declined by more than 85%. Meanwhile, silver, measured in those same declining dollars, has increased by thousands of percent over the same period. Silver is volatile. It has long periods of frustrating underperformance. I will be honest about that. But over the full arc of time since money lost its tangible anchor, silver has consistently done what it has always done throughout history. It has held real purchasing power when paper promises failed. Now here is something most people genuinely do not know about silver. It is not only a monetary metal. It is a critical industrial metal that the modern world cannot function without. Gold largely sits in vaults and jewelry, accumulating over centuries. Silver is different. Silver is consumed, used up in quantities too small to recover economically. Every smartphone contains silver. Every solar panel requires silver. Every electric vehicle uses silver. Medical equipment, water systems, advanced electronics. The modern technological world runs on silver in ways most people carrying smartphones have never considered. And here is why this matters for the future. The global energy transition is accelerating. Solar installations are growing rapidly. Electric vehicles are moving toward mainstream adoption. Every panel and every vehicle requires silver, quantities that analysts increasingly believe will strain available supply in the years ahead. Monetary demand for silver is rising as people seek protection from currency debasement. Industrial demand is rising due to energy transition technologies. And silver supply, which comes primarily as a byproduct of mining other metals, cannot simply be turned on like a tap to meet that demand. This is why serious, long-term thinkers are paying close attention right now, not because of excitement, but because of real, measurable supply and demand fundamentals. I want to close this part with something about mindset. Most people never genuinely question whether the financial system they are comfortable in is actually working for them over the long term. They keep saving in cash. They trust that familiarity equals safety. They never ask whether something real and tangible might serve their future far better. Silver is an invitation to ask that question. Seriously, without panic, but without the comfortable avoidance that quietly costs people so much over a lifetime. In Part 3, we look at what governments and central banks have actually been doing with money, and why this specific moment in history makes this conversation more urgent than it has been in a generation. There is a machine running right now, every hour of every day, never pausing, never resetting. And most people have no idea how directly it is affecting their financial lives. That machine is the modern monetary system, and its defining feature is the unlimited ability to create money from nothing. I am Zara. In this part, we look honestly at what that machine has been doing, what it means for your savings, and why silver functions as a genuine shield in this environment. Let us start with a simple picture. Imagine 100 apples and $100. Each apple costs $1. Now imagine a large number of new dollars are created overnight. Suddenly, far more dollars are chasing the same 100 apples. The price of each apple rises, not because apples became more valuable, because dollars became less scarce. This is inflation, not as a metaphor, as a literal description of what has been happening in the real monetary system. Governments face genuine pressures. Economies need support during downturns. Debts must be serviced. Social commitments must be funded. When tax revenues fall short, creating new currency is the path of least resistance for any government that controls its own money supply. And the consequences fall very unevenly. People who own real assets, property, businesses, precious metals, are partially protected. When more money chases the same pool of real assets, prices rise. Their wealth holds ground in real terms. People who hold cash bear the full cost. Every new unit of currency created dilutes every existing unit. It is a silent, invisible tax. No bill, no signature required. It simply takes. I think about someone I knew personally who spent decades as a careful, disciplined saver. Consistent, responsible, modest. Everything conventional wisdom recommends. But almost everything was kept in bank accounts and fixed deposits. When we sat down years later and looked honestly at what those savings could actually purchase compared to when they were first accumulated, the picture was sobering. The numbers had grown. The real purchasing power had quietly shrunk. Decades of genuine sacrifice, partially eroded by a process that was never explained and never visible in the monthly statement. That person did everything right by conventional standards, and the system still silently took a meaningful portion of the real value of that effort. This is not a story about failure. It is a story about a system with built-in costs that fall heaviest on those who play by traditional rules. Now let us talk about why silver specifically functions as a shield. Silver cannot be printed. Every dollar in existence was created by a human decision, a policy meeting, a computer entry. The supply of paper currency has no physical ceiling. There is no limit to how many dollars can exist. Silver must come out of the ground. It must be found, mined, and refined. Developing a new silver mine from discovery to production takes years of capital, expertise, and labor. The supply cannot be rapidly expanded simply because demand increases or because it would be politically convenient. In a world where major currencies are being created at historically significant rates, silver's natural scarcity is not a limitation. It is its most important quality. The current environment has specific characteristics that matter. Global debt levels are at historic highs. Governments face impossible choices between painful austerity and continued money creation. History is very clear about which path most governments choose when facing those options. They choose the one that is least immediately painful. Silver, in this context, is not about betting on catastrophe. It is about quietly holding a portion of your wealth in something that historically preserves real value when monetary systems are under the kind of stress we are currently experiencing. It is about owning something the machine cannot create. Real financial security is not measured by stable numbers in a bank account. It is measured by real purchasing power, by what your stored wealth can actually do in the world. Silver measures security in those terms. In Part 4, we get completely practical, the mistakes to avoid, the simple approach that works, and how ordinary people actually begin. Everything we have covered has been building to this moment, because understanding why cash loses value matters. Understanding silver's history matters. Understanding monetary policy matters. But none of it means anything if you do not know what to actually do with that understanding. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. I am Zara, and this part is entirely practical. Let us start with the most common mistake I see. It is born from good intentions. When people first wake up to what we have been discussing, many react with urgency. They want to move everything into silver immediately. They want to make up for lost time all at once. They feel like they are behind and need to catch up fast. This is understandable, and it is wrong. Silver is not a replacement for all other assets. It is a component of a balanced, thoughtful strategy, a layer of protection, not the entire structure. A practical framework that many long-term thinkers use is allocating somewhere between 5 and 20% of investable wealth to precious metals. The specific number depends on your circumstances, your time horizon, your overall financial situation. This is not a rule. It is a starting point for honest thinking. And it always begins with money genuinely set aside for long-term wealth preservation, never with emergency funds or money needed for daily life. The second mistake is equally damaging. People buy silver and then watch the price every single day. When it drops, they panic. When it rises, they become overconfident. They make short-term emotional decisions with an asset acquired for long-term strategic reasons. This is using a long-term tool with a short-term mindset. It almost always ends badly. Silver's price is volatile short-term. It will go up and it will go down, and it will test your patience consistently. But over years and decades, measured in real purchasing power terms, it has done its job. If you buy silver as a long-term wealth preservation tool, you must hold it with long-term patience, not checking prices daily, not reacting to market noise, holding it with the same calm discipline you bring to any serious long-term commitment. The third mistake is buying from unreliable sources. Counterfeit silver exists. Impure silver exists. Silver in inconvenient forms that carry high transaction costs exists. When people rush into silver, they sometimes prioritize low prices over reliability and end up with assets that are difficult to authenticate or resell. The practical guidance is simple. Buy from established, reputable dealers with transparent pricing. Buy government-minted coins from recognized national mints. They are easy to authenticate, widely recognized, and straightforward to buy and sell. Avoid unusual formats, suspiciously low prices, and unverified sellers. Now the approach that makes the most practical sense for most people starting out. Consistent, regular purchasing over time. Rather than trying to time the market or wait for the perfect price, Decide on a fixed amount to purchase on a regular schedule, monthly or quarterly, whatever works for your situation. Purchase that amount consistently regardless of where the price sits on that particular day. This removes the psychological burden of timing decisions. It removes the anxiety of wondering whether today is the right moment. Over time, it results in an average purchase price that smooths out short-term volatility and reflects the long-term trend. It is not exciting. It does not make for dramatic stories. But it is the approach that patient, long-term wealth builders actually use. And it works, precisely because it removes emotion from the process. On the question of physical versus paper silver, for genuine long-term wealth preservation, physical silver held outside the banking system is the most direct and reliable form. A paper certificate claiming silver ownership, but held inside the same financial system you are protecting yourself from, does not fully serve the purpose. Physical silver you actually hold, or that is stored in a secure, allocated facility on your behalf, is a categorically different kind of asset. The practical starting point is simple. Begin modestly. Buy physical coins from a reputable dealer. Store them securely. Add consistently on a regular schedule. Measure success not by tomorrow's price, but by the purchasing power you preserve over years. In Part 5, the final warning. And the choice only you can make. We have come a long way together. We talked about what cash really is and what it really does over time. We walked through silver's history as real money across thousands of years. We looked honestly at what modern monetary systems are doing and why ordinary people bear the cost. We got practical about how to actually begin. Now I want to give you the warning, the real one. The one I wish someone had given me clearly, directly, and without softening when I was younger. I am Zara, and this is the most important part of everything I have said today. Here is the warning. The window in which protection is affordable does not stay open forever. Throughout history, the time to acquire real assets as protection against monetary instability is before that instability becomes obvious to everyone, before the headlines scream about it, before the general public panics and rushes in, before the price already reflects the full weight of fear and urgency. Because by the time a currency crisis is front-page news, two things have already happened. The people who positioned themselves earlier are protected, and the price of protection has risen dramatically, often beyond what ordinary people can comfortably afford. This pattern has repeated in every serious monetary crisis in modern history. Early calm action and late panicked action lead to completely different outcomes. Always. I am not predicting a specific crisis on a specific date. Nobody honest does that. What I am saying is that the conditions historically associated with monetary stress, historic debt levels, unprecedented money creation, declining purchasing power, rising demand for real assets, are present right now in ways visible to anyone who looks clearly. Acting on those conditions calmly and early is categorically different from reacting to them in panic after the fact. The second part of my warning. Doing nothing is also a choice, and it carries consequences. Many people hear what I have shared today and they nod. They agree it makes sense. They tell themselves they will look into it soon, that they will start when things settle, when the timing feels right, when they have more clarity. And then they do nothing. Months pass, years pass. The purchasing power of their savings continues its quiet erosion. The opportunity to position themselves calmly at reasonable prices narrows, and the cost of acting later becomes dramatically higher than the cost of acting thoughtfully today. Doing nothing feels safe because it feels like not deciding. But financially, doing nothing is always a decision. It is the decision to remain fully exposed to every risk we have spent this video examining. The third and most personal part of my warning. The people who most need to hear this message are often most resistant to it, not because they are foolish, because they have worked so hard within the existing system. They have followed the rules, done what they were told, built something real through real sacrifice. And the idea that the system they trusted may not be fully protecting what they built feels threatening in a way that goes beyond finance. It feels like a betrayal. I understand that deeply. I felt it myself. It is disorienting. It feels unfair. But the discomfort of a realization is not an argument against it. It is simply the human response to having a comfortable belief challenged by inconvenient reality. And the people who can sit with that discomfort, examine it honestly, and make calm adjustments based on what is actually true rather than what is comfortable, those are the people who build genuinely lasting financial security. So here is your clear, simple takeaway. Honestly assess how much of your stored wealth sits in currency-denominated savings with no protection against purchasing power erosion. Look at that number and ask yourself whether it represents the security you are working toward or an exposure you have simply never examined. Then begin, modestly, thoughtfully, consistently, with patience and without drama. Because your cash is losing its power quietly every single day, and silver has preserved real value for patient, thoughtful people for thousands of years. The choice, as always, is yours. Make it wisely, make it calmly, but please, make it. This is Zara. Thank you for being here today. Take care of your future, because nobody else will do it for you.